Hi, everyone. Welcome. It is Wednesday, November 18th. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us live or watching the recording, today is class number 1 of the South Asian Collective. As some of you know, we're doing these live through November and some of December as well. And the South Asian Collective is a women's group that I put together that may or may not continue into January too, all about healing our stories about being South Asian and women. And so I've got some stuff prepped that I'm going to teach right now. And then I'm going to dive into some work that we're going to do as a group where you're going to write some stuff down. So if you don't have a journal and pen, go ahead and grab one and we'll get started in a second. And before we get started, everyone's just going to gently close their eyes and settle into the body and take a few breaths in and out. So bring yourself here. Drop any baggage or worries you have at the door and just bring yourself, your heart, your soul, your connection, your now into the class tonight. Try to take low, slow flows of breath in and out. Belly breathing heightens your parasympathetic nervous system. It calms us down. It reverses aging. And it makes us happier. So as you breathe into the belly, just find yourself connected into the now as much as possible. Knowing that this is our first gathering and it can feel a bit intimidating and maybe a bit worrisome. And I'm going to ask everybody to just leave any of those worries at the door. The collective is meant to help us engage, love each other, and hold space for each other. So with your eyes closed and your breath moving, just a couple of general rules about the classes. Everything that comes here stays here. So it's like Vegas. Anything you share here stays here. Any aha moments, any inner knowings, if you have the willingness to share when we do the group work, that will accentuate everyone's experience. The second thing that's really important about SAC is that it's a collective. We want to think ourselves as one person, not multiple. So when someone else shares, what they're sharing is a reflection in us. And the last thing I want to say before we gently open our eyes is that this work is about opening our hearts and healing ourselves. Let's take a few deep belly breaths in and out. Feeling your body and your breath. Beautiful. Very slowly at your own pace, gently open your eyes, coming back to the brighter room. Coming back to your body and your breath. Welcome back, everyone. Now, you can keep your eyes closed as I teach this or keep your eyes open, totally up to you. Take notes, don't take notes, but I've got a little bit of stuff prepped. For those of you who are new to my teaching style, I'm going to tell you just a teeny bit about me so you get to understand how I teach. My name's Dr. Divi. I'm trained as a family physician. I went to school for that about 25, 26 years ago, which is a really good thing Indian people do, right? So I did that, and then really long story short, got quite sick, ended up practicing yoga, which took me to opening a yoga studio. And then after doing that for almost a decade, teaching yoga, then I ventured off into intuitive work, which might sound really weird. But what I work right now doing is work as an intuitive coach. I built a business on intuitive coaching, and I teach people how to do what I do. And it's a super fun business. And intuitive coaching is basically this. We all have a connection with the non-physical. Okay, call it your soul, your spirit, your guides, your angelic realm. I don't care what you call it. This non-physical part of us is connected to us. And what intuitives do is we help another person by connecting to their non-physical. And we help them to heal their mind and their emotions by using intuition. So in all the classes I teach, I use intuition. And if you hear me say they are saying this, it's coming from that non-physical place. And as I teach tonight, you might see me close my eyes and open my eyes because it helps me to pull in the energies and the messages. And it's, if that doesn't mean anything to you, throw in the garbage. Just have fun with tonight. And it's not meant to be serious. It's meant to be fun. And I hope you enjoy what we're going to teach tonight. So welcome. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. So one of the reasons I decided to create this collective was predominantly because as an East Indian woman, and I know everyone I've asked to join this as Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Iranian, Sri Lanka, that kind of origin, South Asian women groups. And I've done a fair amount of research on a lot of the common tendencies that that group of people, I'll just call them South Asians, have. And this applies to women that are either living in countries like that, or Africa, Europe, Canada, America. I don't care where you're living, Australia. I guarantee you some or all of what I'm about to teach tonight applies to you. Because how it works is things that are in our intergenerational patterns up to 7 generations back will affect you. Okay, so something I can't even tell you how many 7 generations is, great grandmother, what she thought or he thought, that's going to affect you. And you're kind of thinking, how, right? Well, it's actually kind of simple. As a parent, I'm a parent and I'm blessed to be a parent. My son is influenced by everything I grew up with, even if we're not living in my family of origins home, because they're there, their thoughts and their emotions, and then it gets handed down. And as South Asians, a lot of stuff has been handed down that's very specific to this group. And one of the reasons I got the guidance to teach this collective is because I think as women from this part of the world, we all struggle with very, very, very similar neural pathways. Now, if I took this video and sent it to my entire database of women I work with, which are a lot of people, they'd all be able to get something out of this. Now, there's specific things that South Asian women have that are very specific that other women might have, but are very concrete to this culture, part of the world, that I think if you're from that part of the world, you would really, really understand it. Even if you're 3 or 4 generations living in a different country, it's still part of you. And you'll see what I mean as I get going here. So what I have found over the years I've been running my business is that I actually kind of think it's funny. A lot of South Asian women are gravitate towards me, even though I don't identify myself that much as a South Asian woman, even though I am one. I don't identify myself much as one, predominantly because I moved out when I was 18. I don't speak the language very much anymore at all. I married 2 men who are both not Indian, and my son doesn't really look Indian. So put all those factors together, I'm like, but it's so deeply ingrained in how I think and who I am and how I feel. It's insane, actually, which shows me that what all of us experience is actually identical. And I have clients in India, have clients all over the world, and they have the same beliefs I do when it comes to certain things that only this group of people actually have. So let's start off. One of the things that I teach that is really important to understand is this concept that thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become reality. So if we look at our reality and we're not happy with it, we have to back up and look at what our beliefs and our thoughts are. Our beliefs are formed passively, okay? So typically your belief around money is formed from your mom and dad's belief around money. Your belief around marriage is formed from your mom and dad's belief around marriage. Your belief around how you raise kids, whether they should go to school or higher education, is formed from your parents, whether you like it or not. Most of us take it on passively. Most people do not change their belief systems, which is why when an adult turns usually 30 or 40 or 50 years of age and they have done no work on themselves, they kind of look up and go, oh my God, I'm just like my father, or I'm just like my mother. I never said I would say that to my child, or whatever the conversation is, because those thoughts and beliefs get deeply implanted into your psyche. Now, the other thing you'll want to understand, purely from a neuroscience point of view, is that our unconscious patterning is patterned from by the time we're 7 to 15 years of age. So essentially, all these adults running around, 95% of their actions are from the ingrained patterns from 7 to 15 years, from 0 to 7 years of age, or 0 to 15 years of age. Let's just use 15. Though 7 is the deeper ones, 15 are the other ones, okay? So we have a bunch of adults running around that are actually 7-year-olds. If you ever are wondering about that, look at the American politics. And I say that as a joke, okay? But we are literally 7-year-olds running around in adult bodies who have not healed our belief systems. And a lot of the reason I created this collective is so that we can heal them. Because one of the common things I run into with South Asian women, including myself, if not all women, is a worthiness conversation. And one of the reasons I did this for South Asians as opposed to just all women, because a lot of the workshops I run, everyone you want to know, are largely women. Like I'll have like 30 people and one guy, or 30 people and it's all women. It's kind of the ratio of people that enter this work. But I decided to do this for South Asian women, like I said, because we have very specific things. So one of the things that deeply is ingrained in us is this idea that men are better than women. That is the fundamental thing that deeply is entrenched in every South Asian woman I've ever met, whether they like to hear it or not. It's so deeply entrenched. And what you're going to understand about SAC is it's not about hating men. It's not about burning our bras and killing men. It's not about any of that stuff. But what it's about, in order to heal each of our individual stories, and therefore our daughters and our sons' stories, and our mothers and our grandparents, is 3 processes. Number 1 is forgiveness. Number 2 is atonement. And I'm going to teach you guys this over the weeks we're together. Forgiveness, atonement, and self-empowerment. Those are the 3 main things. Forgiveness, atonement, and self-empowerment. And I will teach you it as we go. But that's the general things we need to do. It's not about blaming our dad or blaming our grandfather or blaming our culture or blaming the temple we grew up with. It's about us taking responsibility and forgiving. Now let's talk about what patriarchy is. Patriarchy comes from the idea that men are better than women. And when I did a lot of research on specifically the country India, and why we have that as a deep-rooted thought system, because India then affected Iran, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, like all those countries are then affected outwards, okay? And when I was researching, it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I'm like, where did this start? And I kept going back, and I honestly, it's not that I couldn't figure it out, but all I basically got down to is it goes back prior to Christ, and it goes back to the ancient times when it was thought that women were actually more powerful because women make babies. Women traditionally are the healers. Women traditionally are the intuitive ones. God, have you ever made a baby? It's the most incredible experience in the world. A human comes out of you. And apparently from my studies, that was very intimidating to men. Oh my God, here's this other being on the planet, different than me, that can actually do something with their bodies called make babies. And they're intuitive, and they can heal, and they love, and they forgive. Oh my God. So in that thinking that women are better than men, my understanding from studying the research, and again, this is not about hating men, it kind of went like this. Okay, we got to make sure we're better. Because these women can do all these things. We need to make sure we're better. And then if you actually look at the temples and the religions that a lot of us come to, a lot of them are strongly ingrained in the masculine. My own mom, who has a master's in Sanskrit, which is the native language in India, which all the scriptures are based on, if it was up to her, she would become a priest. But there aren't Indian priests. They're all men. So she couldn't do that. Do you see how it affected my own family? If that makes sense, because it's all men. So the men took over the churches, the temples, the mosques. And as a result of that, the men had a bit more charge because everyone goes to temple once, twice, 3 times a week. So men are better than women. Now let's talk about how, and we're going to loop back to that. We're going to talk about how we see it in some of these countries, okay? Shows up as things like dowries, which we theoretically are illegal now. But the dowry law, I think went in 1984. I think I have to look back. There's actually a law that says dowries are illegal in India, but dowries still happen in many villages in many places, and dowries still happen here in Canada. There's bride burning, and at least, maybe, I know a few of you know better than I do, at least a few dozen times a year. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. At least a few dozen times a year, we hear stories on the news of a woman from a certain part of Vancouver that was killed because she was brought from India. This is very common in Vancouver. We have a large Indian population. And a man was brought up here, and he brought a woman from India to get married to. And the woman is newly immigrated, speaks that language. Her family and friends are back in India or Pakistan. She comes here, and then she has to integrate with the society. And then for whatever reason, the husband and wife don't get along, whatever reason. The next thing you know, she's killed. And this is not an uncommon thing to wake up to on a Sunday morning with news. Oh, in such and such community, another woman is killed. So these are examples. So we've got the dowry, we've got child brides. They're still very common in India and this part of the world. Sex selection. Ever since on ultrasound, they could discover that you can figure out girls versus boys. So you know the data of men versus women in this culture? It's insane, right? To be a woman is having a bit of power because there's not a lot of us, right? So sex selection is not uncommon to have abortions because it's a girl. The other things are like, this is, I'm going to go here because I've written it down. Sex. We don't talk about sex in our culture. Don't talk about it. But a lot of us do it before marriage. A lot of us do it. And it is just taboo. We don't talk about it because we don't talk about it. For a woman to have sex is unworthy. Then the other thing, the other big one that came up in the class I was teaching last night is if you look at communities like in India, all India, Iran, like I can't even name the countries. There's so many of them. Most most of us, not all of us, obviously, we're trained, especially as women, that you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, like the list. And why? Because then you'd be worthy, right? I was making a joke that 1 out of 4 physicians in the States, and I don't think that's the statistic, are actually Indian. It's a high statistic. Why is it so high? Because from the time we're young, we're taught, hey, this is what you're meant to be. Because if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, then you're worthwhile. So wait, I wasn't worthwhile before? What am I missing here? So what I'm trying to show you is this deep concept of unworthiness is ingrained, okay? And it's very old and very deep. Now, how it shows up in our own individual lives is different. We're going to break it down over the weeks we're together. The other thing I'm getting guided to say to you is that it shows up in a lot of women. I used to work as a physician, as I mentioned at the beginning, as chronic pain. Shows up in a lot of women from that part of the world in chronic pain and obesity and unhappiness and depression and anxiety. Shows up in men as alcoholism. And during these weeks together, we'll be spending some time on the South Asian men too, because we don't want to ignore them. They're not bad people. We want to dissect a little bit about what they're exposed to and why they have insecurities as well. Because as a collective, for women to uprise, we have to understand the masculine too. So where I want to go next is for y'all to understand that for us to heal this patriarchy that I'm kind of giving you an overview about, for us to heal this patriarchy is not about getting angry and throwing sticks at men. It's not about burning the temples. It's not about burning the scriptures that we come from. What it is about each of us individually taking ownership that as a woman, we are strong, healing, forgiveness, atonement, and empowerment. Again, we're going to talk about this over the weeks so that we can take our own empowerment back as a wise woman. I was teaching a workshop in Whistler, and there was an Indian gentleman in the room, young, in his 20s, and he asked me a question at the end of the workshop as to why his intuitive question to me was, why is his mom had a lot of anger. And he said to me, why do you think my mom has so much anger? And I tuned in and I said, because your mom, and this is going to apply to every woman out there from this part of the world, is wise, is beautiful, is intuitive, and is powerful. And she's told she's not. If you're all of those things and a cup of tea, and you're told you're not, you're going to get super angry. So what I want you to understand before I keep going is that there are so many layers in our culture that no one talks about. And we just shove under the carpet. But the only way for us to heal is by lifting the carpet up and taking the dust bunnies out and looking at them. Okay, I'm going to teach a couple more things, then we're going to go through an exercise. Okay. One of the reasons we're in this state we're in as South Asians is because of 3 or 4 things. I wrote them down. One is, and don't take this as an offense, as South Asians, we have a very low emotional IQ. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's generally taught to not do emotions in our cultures. We're taught to be robotic and mechanistic. Go get a job, prove your worth. Emotions, what are they? Throw them over there in the garbage. That's a waste of time. So as a culture, and all of the people I've worked with I've worked with almost every culture out there, just like Asian, Iranian, you name it, I've done it. And I work with a lot of Europeans. And I would say no offense, guys, no offense, the lowest emotional IQ comes from this part of the world. And I'm not saying that I know that, but that's my experience as an intuitive coach, is that we've been taught to be emotionally distant from ourselves. And that's part of the problem. So with a low emotional IQ, we just go about mechanically trying to fix things and make things better. The other thing that's an issue in our cultures is the idea of having an independent you is forbidden. You have to be part of the family, the collective, what society thinks. And to be an independent you is the most forbidden thing ever. At least a lot of these things is how I was raised and what I see with a lot of my clients. Because heaven forbid you step outside. Heaven forbid what society thinks. Heaven forbid you be independent. I remember being in my early 30s. My journey's been a good 20-something years now. And so my story is very briefly, became a doctor. I was always told that once I became a doctor, then the next thing I do is I get married. Logical, I think. So I became a doctor when I was 25. And along the journey, I met this guy who was a friend of mine who was who was Jewish at the time. It was Jewish. And him and I got an exchange program to Australia together. So we lived together as friends in Australia. Came back as a couple. We were boyfriend, girlfriend. And parents didn't talk to me for a year. I think a year and a half in that relationship. I think about half a year in my current relationship, whatever. So they didn't talk to me. I converted to Judaism to be with him. I did get married to him. My parents showed up to that marriage. But because my very logic was, I finished medicine. Now what's the next logical thing is I have to become a doctor. I became a doctor. I have to get married. And I actually was holding my breath because if I didn't figure out how to get married myself, my parents were going to figure it out for me. And that was the last thing I wanted, was for them to figure it out. So then I got married, logical thing. Then after the marriage to him, which I won't go into detail now, it's in my book, I fell apart, ended up getting divorced. I remember lying on the bathroom floor because it was cold. If you ever hear people lying on the bathroom floor and crying their eyes out, the reason they do that is because they want to feel alive. And it's cold. And it's cold. The bathroom floor is cold. So I remember lying on the bathroom floor, crying my eyes out. I could not explain it because this man, my ex-husband, was the man of my dreams. He was everything I wanted. Didn't know why I left him, because I left. What's wrong with me? And then I was doing a lot of studying at the time, reading a lot of books, and I had sudden awareness is because I was never allowed to be who I was. I had to do what everyone else wanted me to do. So I didn't know who I was to save my day, and I was 32 years old. Holy cow. And it was like this flash in front of my eyes of, wow, I've always done what I was told to do. So these are reasons that a lot of us have in the South Asian culture have the problems we do. So I said emotional IQ, being independent, keeping up with society. And the last one, and I talked about this before we actually started, is we don't talk about our problems. We don't say, Mom, I'm angry because you made me eat that third piece of pie. Dad, I'm pissed because da, 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 da. We just don't talk about them. We shove them under the carpet. But what's happening that I see a lot in my clients who are South Asian is it's like a suitcase that gets filled and filled and filled and filled, and you can't close it anymore. And then it bursts open with all of these issues. Cool. I'm going to take you through a quick exercise, then we're going to do a Q&A, and then we'll do a wrap up. So in this exercise, we're going to start to unravel what it is in our own psyche. Now, the thing about the work I do that I want you to understand, which most of you know who are on the call live, is if this is our external reality, remember I said thoughts create beliefs, beliefs create reality? The reason that happens is because my thoughts create a belief, the belief is in my energy field, the energy field then creates my physical reality. Okay, if you want to know more about that, I can send you quantum physics videos. It's well scientifically proven. But my reality is a formation of my conscious thoughts and my unconscious thoughts. And the hardest part of this work is to uncover your unconscious thoughts, which is why you see an intuitive coach, because an intuitive coach can help you see your unconscious thoughts faster. Okay. So we form our unconscious thoughts from our childhood experiences, from what our parents thought, and also from our own stuff that we've taken on. So what I want you all to do right now, and just so you guys know, when you study with me, the answers to these questions are just going to pop in. Okay, you don't need to think. Okay. I want you to write down on one side of the paper the reality, and I want you to choose one area of the life, and just so you know, it's already popping in for all of you guys, one area of your life that is not working for you right now. Just one area that is not working. And actually write down, the guys are saying write down 3. Write down 3 areas. And I guarantee you one of these areas loops back to what we're talking about. Because in this energy field that we're in right now, we're working on the South Asian collective. So I want you to write down one area of your life that isn't working. It could be self-sabotage of your body. It could be my business isn't growing. It could be whatever you want to write down. One area of your life. And actually, no, I said write down 3 areas. 3 areas of your life that are not working right now. And also next to that, write down how you feel about it. How do you feel about this? Like, are you angry? And remember, these are things you don't like. So when you're writing down these areas of your life that are not working, next to it, write down how you feel about it. Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you worried? Are you depressed? Are you anxious? What are you feeling about it? Just breathe as you're doing this, guys. Breathe. 3 areas of your life and how you feel. And we're just choosing 3 for the heck of it. It'll give you guys another minute or two. You don't have to finish the whole thing. You can do the rest of it on your own, but at least have 1 written, because we're going to see if we can loop some of these back to your unconscious thoughts that may have been taught to you from patriarchy. Okay. Now remember, guys, I said earlier, a thought creates a belief becomes reality. So you wrote out your reality. Now, I want you to now what we're going to do is start to uncover what some beliefs may be. Now, if you're newer to this, it might be a little bit like, oh, this is uncomfortable. If you've been doing this a while, it's going to be super easy. What a belief is a belief is a thought you keep thinking over and over again. Sometimes you have no idea. So let's just say you wrote down a reality is that you don't have enough money in your personal bank account. Let's just say. Then the belief might be either I'm not allowed to have money, or it might be money doesn't come to me easily. I'm just showing you examples, right? So now based on what you've written in your reality, I want you to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, what could be a belief that I think that's creating it? And just start writing them down. Just let them flow through your pen. So if this is a reality that's not working, what could be a belief? So for example, I'm just going to give you, I'll keep talking as you guys are writing. For example, let's just say a reality that you wrote that you don't like is that the kitchen is always messy and my husband never pitches in, or partner never pitches in. And the emotion I have is exhaustion or sadness or anger. And then the belief that might go hand in hand with that is that it's my responsibility and men get away with nothing. Like, I'm just making these up, just so you know. Okay. So write down what your belief may be, conscious or unconscious thoughts, that is creating that reality that you're experiencing. And some of them you might feel like you're making up. That's okay. And in a few minutes, when we go to Q&A, we go to the conversation, we're going to hear from you guys. But I just want to record this for everyone, and then I'll do the Q&A privately. Make sure you're breathing as you're doing this exercise, guys. Make sure you're breathing. Keep breathing. Those thoughts will just pop into your head and will just come out of your pen before you know it. If you've written your beliefs, then the next step, and you know the next step, a lot of you, is to write the thoughts that might go hand in hand with it. So we wrote down the reality, then we just started writing down the beliefs. Now I start to break down some of the thoughts that you might have. I'll use the bank account example. So the reality is there's not a lot of money in my bank account. The belief might be I'm not allowed to have money. The thought might be I'm worthless. No one will pay me for what I'm doing. So again, I'm making these up, not giving you anything specific. I'm just making these up. And what we do as intuitives, if you've never worked with an intuitive coach before, is we help you figure out your beliefs and reality based on your energy field and what we get intuitively to say. And so the reason I'm asking you to do this yourself is because, and when we go to Q&A, which we will in a few minutes, we'll dive in there. And for those of you who have written your beliefs and your thoughts, I want you to take a different color pen, or if you only have one color pen, do it in darker. I want you to start to circle which ones come from patriarchy. Just circle or write them in a different color pen. What comes from patriarchy? Guys, this is not about making men wrong, but what comes from patriarchy? And I'm just going to say them out loud as you guys are talking. Because I can read energy, so I can tell you what some of you are writing. I hear some of you are saying something like, I'm not worthy, right? So that comes from patriarchy. It also comes from being a human, don't get me wrong. I'm not lying about that. But why is it so deeply ingrained in you? Why am I not allowed to have that? Write that stuff down. Circle the ones that come from patriarchy. And just breathe. Just breathe, guys. Breathe. Keep breathing, guys. Keep breathing. Circle down whatever ones you have that make you feel less than, not equal to. You're not allowed to have. I guarantee you have them. Breathe. 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 Breathe, guys. Now in a minute, I'm going to stop my recording and then I'm going to talk to y'all individually. So for the people who watch this recording, please do this exercise. I'm not going to be here next Wednesday, but I'll be back the following Wednesday on December 2nd for another episode of SAC. So whoever can join me live, that'd be awesome. So I'm going to hit stop recording, then I'm going to go to Q&A. So for those of you who join live next time, you'll be able to join us for Q&A. So thank you everyone for joining me. I'm going to hit stop record. Then I'm going to talk to my live people right now. Ciao everybody. We'll see you in the second.